The globalization of world economics. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to define economic globalization, identify the actors that facilitate economic globalization, narrate a short story of global market integration in the 20th century, and you should be articulated or articulate your stance on global economic integration. This is the continuation of the discussions that we have had in the previous slides, in the previous video that you've watched and that you've listened. If you have some further questions and clarification regarding with those particular topics, please feel free to ask me through your comments, through your questions in the comment boxes, okay, or in the comment box rather. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, regards economic globalization as a historical process representing the result of human innovation and technological process. It is characterized by the increasing integration of economics around the world through the movement of goods, services, and capital across borders. These changes are the products of people, organizations, institutions, and technologies. As with all other processes of globalization, there is a qualitative and subjective element to this definition. How does one define increasing integration? When is it considered that trade has increased? Is there a particular threshold? Even while the IMF and ordinary people grapple with the difficulty of arriving at precise definitions of globalization, they usually agree that a drastic economic change is occurring throughout the world. According to the IMF, the value of trade, goods, and services as a percentage of world GDP increased from 42.1% in 1980 to 62.1% in 2007. Increased trade also means that investments are moving all over the world at faster speeds. According to the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UNCTAD, the amount of foreign direct investments flowing across the world was $57 billion US dollars in 1982 by 2015. In 1982 rather. By 2015, the number was 1.76 trillion US dollars. These figures represent a dramatic increase in global trade in the span of just a few decades. It has happened not even after one human lifespan. Apart from the sheer magnitude of commerce, we should also note the increased speed and frequency of trading. These days, supercomputers can execute millions of stock purchases and sales between different cities in a manner or in a matter of seconds through a process called high frequency trading. Even the items being sold and traded are changing drastically. 10 years ago, buying books or music indicates acquiring physical items. Today, however, a book can be digitally downloaded to be read with an e-reader. In your case, we are just trying to help you to download the ebook and the other materials for you to be read and to read in advance. Just like the self-instructional manual that we used to download it to aid your need. The same what we did right now. You're just simply watching and listening to the recorded lecture so that enable for you to open your social media accounts such as Facebook and YouTube. And a music album refers to the 15 songs on MP3 format you can purchase and download from iTunes. Can you imagine before you're just simply going to record everything, but now in a simple play of music, you can easily to be downloaded using your iPhone, or any mobile phones, Android, that has or had an app store on iTunes. So no need to buy, no need to purchase, just simply to download it for free. Now, if we're going to talk about the IMF, according to the source of the social media or the Google, it says that the IMF is another body that was formed in 1944 in the world. It was set up to help us increasing globalization throughout the continents, regardless of the economic situation facing the countries, according to Roderick 2011. Since globalization deals with the accelerated movement of capital, services, and commodities across country border, the IMF has played a role of lending money and harmonizing the different economies, especially in ensuring their currencies are stable. It's not what you think na magpapahiram ka agad ng pera, makakahiram ka immediately. Tinitingnan din ang status at estado ng iyong panglaman ng inyong kahero ng inyong bansa. Hindi porket naubusan ka ng pera, hiram ka kaagad, hindi ganoon. Dadaan pa rin tayo ng proseso para makapaghiram tayo ng kapital o pera sa ibang bansa na siyang ayon at handang magpapahiram. Especially this IMF, because this is an organization worldwide. Pero tinitingnan muna ang estado ng ating bansa or ang ating currency kung stable pa ba o hindi na. Moreover, the IMF carries out the rival functions of lending, technical assistance, and financial and surveillance. Surveillance as a function of the IMF deals with advisory functions where governments are encouraged to come up economic policies that are effective. Policy advice and regular dialogue with the respective government is done to enable the countries to boost their economy. Kailangan nyo din. Kailangan din natin magkakaroon ng good relationship to the other countries. Concrete example now, our current president is really doing his best. Now he will be going to down his post as the 16th Republic President sa bansang Pilipinas. Ginagawa niya ang lahat. Pinapakita niya sa atin na ang ating bansa ay lugmok sa utang, lugmok sa kahirapan, pero hindi huli ang lahat para ibangon at bayaran at ituwid ang dapat ituwid, bayaran ang dapat bayaran, ipagpatuloy at palaguin para sa sambayan ng Pilipino, para hindi lamang sa sariling kapakanan. Bilang isang magandang leader, tinitingnan ang kapakanan ng bawat isa, hindi lamang ang kapakanan ng iyong sarili. That is a selfish way of leadership. Ang nakikita mo lang ang sarili mo, pero yung iba hindi. Ang ginagawa, daming komento, walang nakaupong mga presidente. Ewan ko kung saang bansa ka makahanap ng mga presidenteng hindi binibigyan ng negatibong komento. Sila na lang kaya maging presidente. Sila na lang kaya maging public official. Sila na lang kaya mamahala sa mga bansa-bansa para matatamasa din nila ang kanilang mga pag-uugali na siyang panay nila nakikita na mali puro sa mga naging leader sa ating bansa, sa ibang bansa. At sila na din ang mag-isip para maging walang utang. Kung sino pa yung panay reklamo, sila pa yung may ginagawang kabalastugan minsan, pero hindi naman lahat. Okay? In order for us to have this, the IMF also giving a training. Trainings are offered in form of technical assistance by the IMF to prepare the countries to deal issues that may affect the economy. So hindi ka basta-basta pa, pero dadaan ka muna ng training. Bibigyan ka muna ng orientation, seminar, symposium. Kailangan dadalo din tayo para makita din natin kung paano isa-solve ang isang problema in terms of economy. Kung makapagbintang tayo sa ating mga government leaders ngayon, I'm so sorry, bato-bato sa langit, matatamaan, pasensya. Wagas. Wari pakiramdam natin tayo ang the best. Wari pakiramdam natin Magaling na tayong mga commentators, sorry pagkiramdam natin, magaling na tayong mga critics. Pero ano bang naiambag natin para mayaw nating ekonomiya ng ating bansa? Meron ka bang naiambag para may pagmalaki mo sa buong mundo, sa ating bansa, na ito yung naambag mo? Bakit? Sa konting ambag mo lang, kailangan ba talaga ang media para mag-witness? O para magpakitang gilas ka lang, kunwari balatan niya? Dami dyan, kunwari mabait. Pero, nasa loobin pala ang kulo. Kunwari tutulong, pero may intention pa pala sa kanilang tinutulong. The trainings are offered on various subjects like statistics, financial and banking system, relegation and supervision, exchange rate and monetary policies together with fiscal policies has something to do with money to further accelerate globalization. Lending helps considerably in ensuring that the countries have enough foreign exchange to carry out international trade. Kasi kailangan yun eh. Pag wala kang kapasidad at wala kang kakayahan na explain at i-depensa ang iyong bansa at ipaliwanag bakit ka manghiram ng pera, ano yung gagamitan ng pera, hindi basta-basta ganun. Kailangan may katuturan, kailangan may saysay ang paghiram kasi taxes ng sambayanang Pilipino ang binabayad. Kaya if you are not paying your taxes, huwag kang magreklamo. Kasi kami, nagabayad kami ng taxes, kontento kami kasi nakikita namin ang output. Pero yung iba dyan, anuhin na natin yung sarili natin. Huwag tayong magmamalinis. Hindi ko sinasabing magaling ako, malinis ako. Sa sambayanan nga ba talaga ang intention natin o sa ating sarili lamang? Let's continue. International trading systems. International trading systems are not new. The oldest known international trade route was the Silk Road, a network of pathways in the ancient world that spanned from China to what is now the Middle East and to Europe. It was called as such because one of the most profitable products traded through this network was silk, which was highly prized, especially in the area that is now the Middle East, as well as in the West, today's Europe. Traders used Silk Road regularly from 130 BCE, when the Chinese Han Dynasty opened trade to the West until 1453 BCE, when the Ottoman Empire closed it. So alam niyo yung silk, napakagandang tela yun. Napakagandang material, sikat, mahal, pero durable. However, while the Silk Road was international, it was not truly global because it had no ocean routes that could reach the American continent. So when the full economic globalization began, according to the historian Dennis O'Flynn and Arturo Giraldes, the age of globalization began when all important populated continents began to exchange products continuously, both with each other directly and indirectly via other continents, and in value sufficient to generate crucial impacts on all trading partners. Flynn and Giraldes traced this back to 1571 with the establishment of the galleon trade that connected Manila in the Philippines and Acapulco in Mexico. This was the first time that the Americas were directly connected to Asian trading routes for Filipinos. It is crucial to note that economic globalization began on the country's shores. The galleon trade was part of the age of mercantilism from the 16th century to the 18th century. Centuries primarily in Europe competed with one another to sell more goods as a means to boost their country's income, called monetary reserves later on. to defend their products from competitors who sold goods more cheaply. These regimes, mainly monarchies, imposed high tariffs, forbade colonies to trade with other nations, restricted trade routes, and subsidized its exports. Mercantilism was thus also a system of global trade with multiple restrictions. Sinadya to para maprotektahan din yung mga goods natin, ang mga products natin. Pag hindi siya binigyan ng ganitong klaseng pamamaraan, malamang maabuso din yung mga goods natin. Panilang tayo nakatanggap ng imports, pero hindi na-export yung mga products natin. At least, one way, in some ways, barter tayo, palitan tayo, para makakaroon ng bawat isa ng income at magbalik din ang puhunan na kanilang ginawang kapital. A more open trade system emerged in 1867 when the following lead of the United Kingdom, the United States, and other European nations adopted the gold standard at an international monetary conference in Paris. Broadly, its goal was to create a common system that would allow for more efficient trade and prevent the isolationism of the mercantilist era. The countries thus established a common basis of currency, prices, and fixed exchange rate system, all based on the value of gold. See, ang gold buhay na noon. Siguro, ang ginagamit pa noon is gold ang binabayad. Sarap ano? Kung yung ibabayad natin, saan tayo kukuha ng gold dito? Siguro, gawin na lang natin, pinturahan natin ng gold na color ang mga bato para maging mukhang gold. Makaranas din tayo. Kidding me aside, despite facilitating simpler trade, the gold standard was still a very restrictive system as it compelled countries to back their currencies with fixed gold reserves. During World War I, when countries depleted their gold reserves to fund their armies, many were forced to abandon the gold standard. Since European countries had low gold reserves, they adopted floating currencies that were no longer redeemable in gold. So, dumating na yung punto, bumababa na yung gold, wala ka ng gold, so magagawa ka na ngayon ng pera. Kasi, na-abandon na yung gold standard noon. So, mag-create ka na ngayon ng currency mo. Kaya the reason, meron tayong mga iba't ibang currency. Ito yung pera ng Pilipinas. Ito yung pera ng Negara, Brunei. This is 5 dirham. Okay? 5 ringgit. Okay, I don't know that dirham. This one is from 10,000 rupiah to Indonesia. Okay? This one is $1 from 1 ringgit. Negara, Brunei. This one is still 1 ringgit. And this one, Bank of Indonesia, 2,000 rupiah, 22,000. This one, it's from, it was given to me by my former students as a souvenir. So I'm so glad that they gave me these other currencies for you also to see. I cannot read the bank of this. Look at it. I don't know. It's that maybe a country who can identify that letters. Okay? I'm so sorry. This one, it's Bahrain. Okay? I don't know why is it 1 half. Maybe 1 centavo or 50 cents here in our country. This one is Indonesia, 20 ribu. Okay? And this one, it's of course, you are familiar with this, the United banknotes, $1. Now, despite of that banknotes that we're using right now, still, our currency is very low compared to the United States and other countries. And some of the other countries are currency much higher compared to their currency. The gold standard, once common, has proven to be a very restrictive form of globalizing trade. Returning to a pure standard became more difficult as the global economic crisis called the Great Depression started during 1920s and extended up to the 1930s, further emptying government coffers. This depression was the worst and longest recession ever experienced by the Western world. Some economists argue that it was largely caused by the gold standard, since it is limited the amount of circulating money and therefore reduced demand and consumption. If governments could only spend money that was equivalent to gold, its capacity to print money and increase the money supply was severely curtailed. Hindi naman siguro porket marami kang gold, magpaprinta ka na lang ng maraming pera as you wish to. And I do believe na may limitasyon din ang pagpiprinta ng pera ng isang bansa taon-taon. Hindi porket magprinta ka ng ganito, hindi porket magprinta may gold kang ganito na marami ka, pwede ka mag-create ng more currency, more money. Ayun na lang sa kagustuhan mo, hindi ganun. May sinusunod pa rin yung batayan at batas. Kung ilan lang at magkano lang ang ipiprint natin pera na siyang gagamitin din sa taon. Okay? Let's continue. Economic historian Barry I. Green argues that the recovery of the United States really began when, having abandoned the gold standard, the US government was able to free up money to spend on surviving the economy. At the height of the World War II, other major industrialized countries followed suit. So, siguro mga established na yun sila, sumusunod din sila sa yapak ng nauna na nakikita na lang nakakatulong sa kanilang bansa at ayon sa saligang batas na kanilang sinusunod. Though more indirect versions of the gold standard were used until as late as the 1970s, the world never returned to the gold standard of the early 20th century. Today, the world economy operates based on what are called fiat currencies. So, yung fiat currencies, yun na yung pinapakita ko sa inyo. This is one of the example of the banknotes from the United States. Ito yung isa sa mga fiat currency. Ito yung sa Indonesia, 20,000 20,000 rupiah. Ito naman yung sinasabi, ito yung Bahrain. Okay? Ito yung mga fiat currency nila. Ito yung, saan kayo ito na country? I try to double, I cannot read. It's another, look at it. This is the reality of the money that I received from my former student. She was able to visit that particular country before, but I forgot the country. 2,000 rupiah. Look at their money. Okay? Meron na tayo ngayon 1,000 yung may mga special disenyo. Okay? This one, also the fiat currency of what country? Brunei. This one also from Indonesia. See? This one also it's from Brunei. And this is from Philippines. So, proud of. Kasi pera din natin ito. Okay? Now, currencies that are not backed by precious, okay? Currencies that are not backed by precious metals and whose value is determined by their cost relative to other currencies. Ito naman, may mga pera ang gaganda, may mga perang hindi nababasa ng tubig kahit i-dig mo pa yan sa water, hindi natutunit. Okay? Now, let's continue. This system allows governments to freely and actively manage their economies by increasing or decreasing the amount of money in circulation as they see fit. So, ito yung sinasabi ko sa inyo kanina, hindi basta-basta mag-circulate ng money. Kailangan may limitasyon. Kailangan, hindi mo pwedeng sabihin na ito yung isa-circulate ko, ito yung gusto ko, hindi pwede ganun. May nakaakma lang kung magkanong ang exact amount ang ipiprint. Kaya before the calendar ends of the year, or the calendar, before the end every year, gumagawa na sila ng mga budget proposal para alam na nila kung magkano yung kakailanganin nila for the next year calendar. Ngayon, ang pera natin more elevated na siya. If you're going to witness the 1,000 natin ngayon, the 1,000 peso bill, may dami pa daw yung mga kasunod. Nakikita ko nag-i-improve na yung pamamaraan ng ating pera. Hindi nasasayang at hindi napupunit kaagad. At pwede nating ingatan kasi pwede natin siyang maitago kahit tag-ulan, pwede ilagay sa pitaka, hindi siya nababasa. Kaya, the moment you think of lending money to others, magpahiram ka na hindi naman gaano ka asang kubo. Manghiram ka kung sa tamang pamamaraan. Huwag abusuhin ang kabutihan na idulot ng iba sa'yo. Kasi, I do believe of karmas. Huwag abusuhin ang pinapakitang tama sa'yo. Dig more knowledge. Dig more information. Dig more conversation in line with academic endeavors. Make yourself into a fruitful one so that you can able to soar high. See you to our next discussion. God bless everyone.